Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Sanjeev Thakur, who is the CEO of Enlite Homes. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Well, I really appreciate you being here because before we jumped on, we were having some good laughs. So
we'll keep laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Hopefully. We'll see. We'll see what a camera does to us, right?
All right. So you've recently moved from California to Provo, Utah. And the reason for that?
Number one, I think business environment. I think that has been a good thing. California is getting more and more challenging to do business. Most of our company comes from people from BYU. So it just makes so much sense. Taxes, business environment, the quality of the people. And here we are.
There you go.
And the snow that I love, driving in the snow has been my favorite thing too.
You don't like to ski in it, you just like to drive in it.
I realized this winter that I need to start skiing, so that's the goal.
Yeah, there's upsides to snow and there's downsides. It sounds like you're only experiencing the downsides.
I did say I do love to drive in the snow, so it's an upside. Yeah.
You're feeling a little frisky, you just go drive in the snow with a little two-wheel drive, rear drive vehicle, and
I've done it, and that was an adventure.
There you go. Doesn't work as good as they say on the commercials. All right, so Enlite Homes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear the founding story of that.
Okay. So Enlite, my background, when I was at BYU back in the day, I used to do summer sales. It was good for the summer, good money. I didn't really love it. And after I was done with college, my plan, I'm originally from Chile, planning going back to Chile, start a business. I was obsessed, funny enough, with Cafe Rio.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to do. I would go to Cafe Rio and sit there for 2-3 hours after a meal just to see everything. My dream was like, how can I open Cafe Rio all over Latin America? Got married. My wife was doing the accounting program at BYU, and she's like, I'm not moving to Chile anytime soon, so you need to find something to do.
There you go.
It was go corporate, get a job, or let's do something more entrepreneurial. And that's when I got into solar, when it was barely starting. Even solar back in the day, everybody was trying to figure things out. And I got into the residential side for a little bit, and then I really wanted to move into commercial solar. Learned a lot, suffered a lot, but it gave me, especially during those days when the circle was so small, I was exposed to a lot, and that helped me learn the industry in a very different and unique level. I worked doing different things in commercial in very different areas of the solar industry. And then in 2016, I was getting tired of commercial, and I had this background of residential. I said, with a friend, Trent Guzzi, he was doing residential at the time, and he said, Sanjeev, why don't you start with all the connections and all the structure? How can we start something just for residential? That's how we started Enlite.
Okay. The
idea was always keep doing commercial, and he can do some residential here and there. But it moved into just 100% residential with a very different model back then that was doing solar for the summer. It was never a thing. So we started that, and here we are.
I love it. So you're into it 8 years, roughly?
Yeah, it's been a while, 2016, yeah.
Yep. And
I look younger. If you look pictures from back in the day.
Yeah. No, it's amazing that you're a 24-year-old entrepreneur and you've been doing it for 8 years.
That's what I think, yeah.
The business model of solar, we don't have enough time to go over all of the awesome virtues and merits of solar in general, but your guys' business model, what is that?
So basically our business model, we've been working primarily in California. The business model is on the dealership. Like solar originally was you finance, you sell, you install, all one company. Solar has moved into more, you have a company that's more specialized on the sell, another one that is installation, and then you work with a financer. So we've been more on the sell side. So our model has been primarily door-to-door. We do some inside sales and things like that, but it's been door-to-door, packaging the deal for the customer in California market where people are paying 10 times more than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. You offer them solar, different programs. You can do a lease, you can purchase it, you can do a loan. You package it and then People are saving money, and we moved to the next door.
Gotcha. So for the door knockers, obviously, like pretty smile helps, thick skin, but the company behind it needs to be bona fide and legit. How do you live in both worlds, right? Where you're building the company and building the sales force?
That's a really good question. So culture has been the most important part of Enlite. And that was something that I tried to define very early. I did have a lot of issues with the door-to-door industry. When I did it, it was, well, good money, but I hated my life. And there were things that I didn't love at all on the ethics side and the way that you're trained on how to sell. When I started Enlite and we decided to have a summer program, one of the things that we really want to do is how can we be different? How can we get rid of all this bad stigma and try to do it the right way, where it can be an experience where people can grow? Defining moment for me to establish that culture that defined who we are is our first year. We didn't have any money, just barely to make it. After the summer, not a lot of success, and I had the terrible idea to say, let's go to Mexico City and we're going to donate presents to all the kids in this massive children's hospital. Pay for the flights, pay for the presents and all that. Numbers were horrible. But that established a culture of we want to do this differently, right? Since then, that has been the brand. And it has made everything actually a lot easier because normally when you talk about sales, there's this two sides, right? When you're in front and the thick skin and all that, the rejection, but there's also the loss of dishonesty and you get greedy and all those things. The culture and purpose has made this a lot more sustainable, where you can combine all of those things. So it's not this two sides, it's one side, right? And that has been really, really unique and motivating for us.
That is very cool. So the company, as well as the door knockers and sales reps, are kind of all rowing in that same direction with sounds like a pretty big charitable component to it.
Yeah, big. I can talk a little more about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that for us is very important is how can you develop people, not just with money. And I think we come from these generations, and we were talking about this earlier, like profit, and that gives you this sense of stability. It has created all these issues, right? And we see this in the door-to-door industry and in business in general, that money can really corrupt. Money can really make you lose a lot of perspective. For us, we try to start with the foundation of, I need you to be a good person and care for the right things. That's your barrier of entry. We can teach you the rest. And how can we maintain that? How can we make that the purpose of what you're doing is present on everything that you do? That has avoided a lot of problems. So one of the big things we do is we work with an organization in Guadalajara, Mexico. It's called Gran Esperanza. All they do is they raise funds for kids that get to the local hospitals that have no money.
Mm-hmm.
Money goes a long way in Mexico.
Yeah.
So you find these kids. The first one that we sponsored is this kid that has been waiting for cancer treatment for 3 months. Terrible situation. Mm-hmm. Parents live 4 hours away. The mom, because she doesn't have money to drive back and forth, just sleeps on the bed under him on the floor. Kid is just waiting for any donation. If not, they die. And imagine the stress being, I have a daughter, like people going through something like that.
Brutal.
We found out that the cost of these treatments are around $2,000 to $5,000. That for them is impossible. For a kid that does door to door, they make $5,000-$7,000 on a sale sometimes.
Yeah.
When you can teach them that impact, when you can say, hey, what you do, this value money can do something amazing, everything changes about you. When our reps go and meet those kids and they meet those parents, and this magical moment where there's no hope on them, there's absolutely nothing. And then this 21-year-old gringo shows up and is like, yeah, I was just knocking doors and I thought I could help.
Yeah.
That does something to you. And if you have those experiences early in life, you will behave differently. Money's gonna look differently to you when a lot of the problems happen. Dishonesty and all this is when you don't have that, when you don't understand that value. So that has been a really cool model that we've been adopting, and we see that it works not just for us, but for a lot of other businesses.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really very amazing, because usually people figure out the charitable or the cultural aspect after their balance sheet's nice and padded and they're looking good. But you guys kind of use that to define the core part of your business model, and it probably enables you to have a different group of sales reps right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a bit of an ass when somebody knocks on my door. I don't mind that they do. It's always fun. But there's 3 or 4 people trying to sell solar. And I guess I just can't help myself. It's like, yeah, bring the truck and just install it real quick. Right? I know it's not that hard. Some bolts and some panels and connect it to my little grid. Well, I don't do that. Okay, never mind that. Right? But I think even the customers, right, if they're in the know, that might even tip them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that to be the case? That you guys have that aspect?
It happens, right? It happens. But again, it needs to be something very holistic. It needs to be present in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have this coherent message and behavior, then it doesn't really work. So for us, it's super important that everything that you're doing, like, it cannot just be that we're charitable.
Yeah.
You also need to have business effectiveness and efficiency. You need to have the tools. You need to be trained. You need to provide a good product. You need to provide a good value.
Yeah.
And then it's different, right? Then it's different. So I really believe in that. You cannot just be, oh, I want to do good and do charity. You need to be good at what you're doing. You need to offer something good.
Yeah.
Right? And
I love it. Kudos to you. And that's awesome.
I'm the guy that smiles. And I bring the diversity too. So
there you go.
That's what they use me for.
Because your background is Chilean and Indian.
Chilean and Indian.
Not a lot of those.
Me and my sister so far.
There you go.
That I know of.
You don't need an ancestry test.
I hope not.
All right. So if somebody, let's use an example and intertwine the business model. From Enlite Homes knocked on my door.
Mm-hmm.
There would be obviously the pitch and the decision, and then I assume that starts a process, right? Mm-hmm. You guys, I assume, don't have a factory where you're making the panels. You probably don't have the trucks and all of that. So what happens after it is a yes with you guys in a general sense, and how long does it take?
So it depends on the market. Every market is going to be different with installation times and jurisdiction and permitting and all those things. In California, our partners on installation, they're called Bright Planet Solar. So we hand all the operational parts. So customer signs, and then there's 2 lines going. One is the sales communication and the rep making sure that the project is moving. Then on the back side, you have the operational side with Bright Planet, that they're working on the warehouse, doing all the design, working with all the permitting. 2 to 3 weeks, you get the system installed. They're very fast, and that's not a standard. I think they are faster than the rest. Once they're installed, they're interconnected, and it's a very, solar, when you look at the last 10 years, the efficiency on operations, it's very, very different. We're coming from an industry that even 8 years ago, it was taking 6 months, 8 months to get installation with a very, very high cost, to bring it to a very efficient and sustainable model that you can scale it very quickly, and it's growing in every state.
Yeah, which is great. And we'll get into that.
And there are challenges, right?
Very much. Let's say the installer installed it under a big oak tree under all the shade instead of like a south-facing roof. Would that be back to you guys for customer support, or would it be a different part?
And that is one of the big problems. That is one of the big problems that we see in solar, is there's not a lot of barrier of entry in sales or even operations. So there is a lot of room for manipulation and a lot of room for dishonesty. You can go to markets, even in Utah. I talked to a lot of friends and family. They're like, hey, I got a solar quote, and they're saying I'm going to get this return in 7 years. and look at the proposal, and there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
That customer has no idea.
Yeah.
The sales rep is just thinking, hey, how much money can I make? And I can just put it. And there's not a lot that actually gets back to them. The customer doesn't really have a lot of recourse, especially with loans on purchases.
Yeah.
When you do a lease or a power purchase agreement, there's a lot more protections because then you're talking to a Sunrun, a SunPower, the finances that they are responsible for everything. When you do a loan or you do cash, you're talking to the manufacturer, you're talking to the financing company, you're talking to the sales company, you're talking to the installer.
Yeah.
You have a problem, the financing company is like, well, I have nothing to do with that. You signed this loan, you just pay me.
Yeah.
Installer is going to be like, well, it's not my problem. It was the sales guy.
Yeah.
And that has been the number one issue with residential solar in the U.S. That companies, door-to-door companies, unfortunately, they just see the money aspect and they go to markets where solar makes very little sense, where people are paying nothing for power. They get this very expensive loans with no warranties. People get excited, think they're going to save a lot of money. Sure enough, then they want to sell their house. They have this $60,000 loan on their $300,000 house that is not saving any money. They have an issue with the panels; it's not working, and sales guy is long gone. Right?
Long gone.
So that is a very challenging thing.
Yeah, and as industry player in a big industry, if there's enough of those bad actors, it could ruin the entire.
And that's what we see, and we're starting to see more regulation. I think when we start seeing more problems, we see more regulation, we see more barriers of entries, but there's still a lot needed. There's markets like Texas still is just and Utah. I'm seeing a lot of that. I always tell people, be very careful. Take your time. Don't just jump into something, especially here where power is not very expensive. Solar is a very good thing. It solves a lot of problems, but you cannot just think that it's this money saver, that it's this slam dunk, and you're stuck for 25 years on a loan, right?
Right.
So
not good. Well, if done right and everything works and it's an honest transaction, what would be the ROI for a residential house in Utah?
When you're looking at Utah, and it has to do also with the position where you're putting the panels. Here you have the mountains, you have the snow and everything. You're normally, for everything that I'm looking at how the pricing is working, you're looking around 20 years.
20 years.
Okay, and you really need to understand that, and that is without a battery.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is, I'm getting solar, and that's self-reliance. So, and Utah is very big with that, right?
Right.
So yeah, if the power goes out, I have my solar panels. Let me tell you that nothing is going to happen. Like your panels are connected to the grid. If power goes out, you're done.
Yeah.
Unless you put a battery, and a battery is not going to just power your whole house. It's going to power your essentials for a limited period of time.
Yeah.
And batteries are around $10,000. So let's add a little bit more money there. So you need to really be careful with that and understand that even if there's not a return, there are other values of solar, and it's okay to go if you understand those values and you're okay with that.
Yeah.
But if you think it's this money-saving thing, open your eyes. California, you go to the East Coast, it makes a lot more sense financially. You're saving people money. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
But it's not the same in a lot of other states.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you for being honest again. Well done.
It's safer.
It is safe.
And it's sustainable. So it's a better business decision, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of reasons why people would opt for solar, right? Like if I won the lottery today, the tree hugging hippie side of me would do it just regardless, right? I could care less about the money. But there's the environmental aspect. There's the redneck prepper aspect. If you do have the battery, it might not keep you going for 30 years, but it might get you those 3 days where the zombies are there. And
at that point, I want to be done. I don't want to survive that thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to get something. It's like, I'll probably take a pill. Why do I want to deal with that? Yeah. No, thank you.
And then for, you've mentioned some states, like the economics are there, right? And so like in a perfect world, the economics are there and you are helping Mother Earth, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of people plugging in a lot of things. And now there's a lot of electric cars.
Absolutely.
Like this isn't just a nice to have. Like it's probably critical.
And that is the biggest value that people fail to see in solar, but you want to be careful too, right? There are 4 main reasons why people do solar. The most obvious one for people that they think is save money, right? Yes, you can save money if your utility and your price per kilowatt is higher than your total cost of solar on the for the life of the solar. Pretty straightforward. In California, you're paying 50 cents a kilowatt. In solar, you're buying it around 20, 22 cents. Pretty obvious, immediate savings right there.
Yep.
That's not the reality anywhere else. Okay. And in Utah, that's not it. You're paying 11, 12 cents, 14 cents. The second one is the long-term saving. Okay. And long-term saving is not just the saving, but is the issue that we have right now with the grid system and the way that we're using power. When we look on something that you were bringing up, we need to understand how technology has changed our consumption of power dramatically.
Yep.
Our generation, and you would have one computer in the house.
Right.
How many TVs you had in your house, right? You look at now, I look at these kids in college, right? Just in a dorm, they don't have enough outlets for all the devices they have.
Right.
What happens with the household, right? You start looking at electric cars. All the big states, California, they're starting to mandate people to have electric cars. All manufacturers now are making electric cars. That's the future. Mm-hmm. So 5-7 years from now, you're going to see, do I want to buy a normal fuel car? Do I want to buy an electric car that's actually cheaper?
Yeah.
What are you probably going to do, right? And if you buy the electric car, where's this power coming from? So when you look at the grid, a lot of people just worry about the production. What is my cost of production? Oh, well, I have oil. That's great. The big challenge in electricity is, how am I going to bring this power to the house?
Yeah.
That's the expensive part. That's where all the liabilities. Like you look at California, you bring a lot of power out of state, and then you're bringing all this power through all these forests, right?
Yep.
And the expense and liability that you have on that grid, just like it's terrible.
Right.
What happens if you build a freeway for 1 million cars? 5 years later, there's 1 billion cars on that freeway. What do?
Not going to work.
It's collapse, right? And that's the problem. That's what we're starting to see in every state right now, that we are exponentially using more power. How do we distribute that power? How do I bring this in peak hours when it's really hot and people are using their AC and they're plugging in their car? What do you do? Yeah. So California, the way that they're doing is there's penalties, tolls on a freeway, right?
Yeah.
Penalties. So power is getting more expensive. But the problem is not really the expense. Is, am I even capable of bringing this power to you?
Yeah.
That's where solar and battery systems are the future.
Yeah.
That's where we're moving. Obviously, there's going to be better technology, and we're going to get more efficient. We're going to find better ways to do it. But right now, it does solve that problem really, really well. But you need to understand that if you don't have the immediate savings, you're doing it is going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
And if you want to go green, you're a tree hugger, even better. And I think there's value there, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that is the biggest value of solar.
Yeah. The smart money would be like, get ahead of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are incentives right now that are very good. You have tax credits, and with Biden, we can argue there, but there's very good incentives towards renewable energy. This is a very good time to do it. Pricing, there hasn't been a big change in pricing and on manufacturing or anything like that. And with power only going up, solar companies are also charging more. So we're not really seeing a decrease in pricing. So I think it is a smart move, but you need to put the time. Don't get emotional here in Utah with self-reliance and the guy just throwing a number there. It's a very good, and I'm very pro-solar, and it's good, but you need to do it right, and you need to understand the expectation. You need to understand it very well.
Yeah. Because I assume happy customers will give you guys free leads.
Absolutely.
Don't have to pay for them.
And it's your brand.
Yeah.
You cannot, again, it's this coherent message that you're trying to send, right? You cannot tell your guys, do good, be good people, and when you're in front of the customer, screw them over. Like,
not going to work.
It just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And then you start creating all these other problems, right?
Yeah. Being run out of business or even in jail, right?
You hear all these stories, and I'm like, how are these people still around? But, yeah.
yeah, it's an amazing industry, and it's fun to watch, right? Because we were talking a little bit beforehand. I did a investment pitch to get into a thing called University Growth Fund, and it was a photovoltaic around 2008, 2009 solar company, which would seem like a dinosaur today, right? So even me as a layman, I can see the technological advances like pretty quick. And there's probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of smart people working on it, because there's this big old ball of fire that's just giving it away for free, right?
Absolutely.
Channel that.
It has changed. I mean, you go. I mean, you were in the Bay Area. You drive through Berkeley, and you're going to see this houses that got solar panels like on the early 90s. There's this massive things that produce nothing, and they paid a fortune for it. Now it's making economical sense.
Yeah.
And the technology, and not just on the panels, but in inverters, on the efficiency, batteries. Batteries is the next wave of solar, and we're seeing huge improvements there. So
yeah, this is one that it seems like all 8 billion souls on planet Earth should get, right? You take their electricity away, and they'll turn into zombies in like 6 hours, right?
That's what we need to think about this more, huh?
Yeah.
I think we're not thinking it to the. Maybe it's another podcast. We'll talk about zombies and what should I do. But
when the power goes out at my house, I'm like, this is the best. This is amazing. But my wife's just like, this is the worst. You compound that by hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, and have that when it's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's the worst.
No
when
good.
you have a kid and their iPad doesn't have battery, what do you do? That's worse than the 100 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah, people, they lose their minds really quick. What do you guys have on the docket? What are you most excited about with the coming years?
We're opening new markets. Puerto Rico is one of the markets that we are super excited. We're going to start there. It's there's the solar aspect. I think we're going to markets where we can solve problems. We don't go to markets where solar doesn't make sense. We don't go to Iowa. We don't go there where you can just take advantage. And we see that it's moving. There's a way. When you look at Puerto Rico, you have a grid that is completely obsolete. Where we complain here about power going out. There it goes out 5-7 times a day.
Yeah.
Like when you have the hurricanes, more people die because of lack of power than actually the damages, right?
Yeah.
So that is a market that there's a lot of purpose there, where you can actually save lives through solar, where you are helping people with their lifestyle. You're working, you are connected to an electric device for health or something. Solar is solving the problem in an island where it's the perfect scenario, right? So those are markets that we're super interested in working. But the other side, on the business, we're really moving into doing business differently. That is what really moves us the most. How can we do things differently? How can we not just be efficient, but effective and bring purpose to everything that you do? It's so exciting when you work with people that you trust and they're excited to do something good. You don't need so many of those.
Yeah.
But there's this very good environment of trust. And I just wish businesses can start moving in that direction and not just money, because I see that social problems can be solved with business.
Yeah.
The government is never going to solve it.
No.
A lot of people are not going to solve it, but business owners, CEOs, executives, you can make decisions and you can make such a big impact, So that's what I'm excited about. That's the Enlite that keeps me going. And solar is a great product right now, but how can I teach these kids that are 21, that they're smart, they want to be entrepreneurs, that they'll learn how to make money here, that they know that they can have impact, and then they're going to start their own business. Like, I want to do something like that. It's not just money. That's exciting. That's the new wave.
I love it. Yeah, if you've got a bunch of disciples that think along those lines, no matter what they do.
This is the new generation. The new generation, I mean, we have some issues with millennial and all that stuff, but they care more about anybody else. Yeah. Our generation, like our parents, is like they just put their head down and work really hard.
Yeah,
we like our relationships, our feelings, our emotions. That was not a thing. Therapy, like that was not a thing.
Yeah.
Now we are caring. We're thinking, well, that's not the right way to do it. We've been doing this for 50 years. We've created a lot of problems.
Yeah.
These guys are thinking about that, and there's purpose. There's a lot here. how as a business can we adapt? How can we create this environments where people can come in with that mindset and not just get lost on a wonderland of I want to change the world? It's like, no, you can do it in an effective way. You don't.
Yeah.
And that is cool because now they just spend all their money traveling and on Instagram, right? So
yeah,
I think we can do something cool with them.
Yeah, there's still got to be a framework if you're going to change the world. And it sounds like you guys have a good little toehold.
I mean, I'm getting a lot of gray hair trying to change the world, but it takes a long.
Well, you can't change the entire world, but you can change parts of it.
I'm trying to change, since I'm Chile and India, I'm trying to change one of those. Chile is only 16 million. India's like 1 billion, but I do love Indian food, so.
There you go. You got 1 billion and 16 to work on.
That's a challenge. No.
I think you can do it. Well, we could go on for hours with this one, but
we need to get lunch off the record.
Off the record.
So many things we need to talk about.
It's been really great getting to know you, Sanjeev, and congrats to you and your team. And it's going to be fun to watch what you guys do because you're doing a couple of things at the same time. Yeah,
no, it's been fun, and thank you. I think it's awesome to have this spaces where people think differently and they value that. That's the way we need to value the diversity of thought. We need to change the way that we're doing. And I think Utah, that's one of the things that I'm so attracted, and that's one of the reasons why I moved here. There is this entrepreneur mind of let's not follow the standard.
Yeah.
I love that. And you guys are the center of that. So it's super cool to be here.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for your time. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you on again.
Well, thank you. Love to be here.